The person you knew is gone. If you've been through the kind of emotional pain that doesn't just hurt you, but changes how you move through the world, you already understand what this means. You can still smile, you can still function, but something inside you doesn't open the same way anymore. In a moment, I'm going to explain the quiet personality shift that happens after an empath is emotionally destroyed, the one people mistake for coldness, arrogance, or attitude. And later, I'll show you the most overlooked sign that this shift is happening right now inside you, even if you're still trying to act normal. Because what changes isn't your heart. What changes is your access. Empaths don't usually turn hard overnight. They turn cautious slowly, one small betrayal at a time, one dismissed feeling at a time, one moment where you realize you're giving your best to someone who handles it carelessly. And the hardest part is when the shift begins, you don't even call it a shift. You call it being tired. You call it stress. You call it needing space. But your nervous system is doing something more serious. It's rewriting the rules of closeness. Here's the first truth. The empath who gets emotionally destroyed is rarely destroyed by one event. They're destroyed by a pattern that teaches them their love is not safe in the hands of the person they gave it to. It's when you keep explaining and nothing changes. It's when you keep forgiving and they keep repeating. It's when your tears become inconvenient. It's when your boundaries become a debate. It's when your sensitivity becomes the joke. It's when you begin to feel the moment your openness gets used against you. And what makes it destroying is not only what they did, it's what you started to do to yourself to survive it. You started shrinking your needs. You started doubting your instincts. You started calling your intuition overthinking. You started apologizing for normal requests like consistency, respect, and emotional presence. And one day you notice something quietly terrifying. You don't feel like you anymore. That's the beginning of the personality shift. Now here's a pattern interrupt. The new you is not your personality. It's your protection. People see the protection and call it change. But the truth is, something in you finally learned what your kindness couldn't afford to learn earlier. Not everyone deserves access to your softness. So what does the shift look like? It looks like you become quieter, but not because you have nothing to say. Because you're tired of speaking to people who listen only to respond, not to understand. It looks like you stop explaining, not because you don't care, because you realized explanation has been your way of begging for empathy. It looks like you stop chasing closure, not because you're strong, because you're tired of reopening wounds just to be fair. It looks like you stop reacting, and people think you don't feel. But you feel everything. You just stopped donating your feelings to people who mishandle them, and you can see it in real life, in small moments. You read a message, and you don't reply instantly, not as a game, but because you're checking your body first. You notice your chest tighten before you answer, and for the first time, you respect that signal. You decline a plan, and you don't write a paragraph. You say, I can't, and you let the silence after it exist. Someone tries to pull you into drama, and you don't take the bait, not because you're above them, because you've already been burned by that fire. Here's the second truth. After emotional destruction, an empath's empathy doesn't disappear. It becomes selective, and that can feel like grief, because you may miss the old version of you who could love freely. You may even feel guilty for changing. You may think, I'm becoming cold. But coldness is numbness. This is not numbness. This is discernment. It's you finally being honest about what closeness costs you. Now, the mid-video loop, the overlooked sign that this shift is happening inside you, even if you're still trying to be the same person. Here it is. You stop sharing your inner world. You still talk. You still respond. You still show up. But you stop confiding. You stop telling them the small joys because you don't want them minimized. You stop telling them the real pain because it turns into an argument. You stop telling them your dreams because you don't want to watch someone handle them casually. And that's when people get confused. They say, why are you so distant? But what they mean is, why don't I have the same access I used to have? Because access is what changes first. Before you leave physically, you leave emotionally, not as punishment, as self-preservation. And once you stop sharing your inner world, the relationship begins to die quietly, because intimacy is not proximity. Intimacy is being safe while you are real. Now let's talk about why this hits empaths so deeply. Empaths often have a particular wound. They didn't just want love. They wanted emotional truth. They wanted repair. They wanted to be met, not managed. And many empaths grew up in environments where they had to become emotionally advanced early. They learned to read moods. They learned to anticipate. They learned to keep the peace. They learned to be good. So their identity becomes tied to being the one who understands, who forgives, who stays. That identity can keep you in places that hurt you longer than you should stay, because leaving feels like failure. Leaving feels like you didn't try hard enough. Leaving feels like you're abandoning someone. But here's the reframe that liberates you. Staying where you're emotionally destroyed is also abandonment. It's self-abandonment. And the personality shift is what happens when self-abandonment finally becomes unbearable. Now, right here in the middle, I'm giving you one clear action step you can do today to rebuild your sense of self without becoming closed. It's called the two-door rule. There are two doors in your life. Door one is access to your attention and time. Door two is access to your inner world. Most empaths give both doors too quickly. So starting today, you keep door two closed until someone proves through consistency that they can hold what you share. How do you do that? You share smaller truths first. You watch what happens. Do they stay present or do they get defensive? Do they validate or do they minimize? Do they repair or do they blame? Do they keep your vulnerability private or do they use it later as a weapon? If they fail the test, you don't argue. You simply keep door two closed. This is not cruelty. This is emotional hygiene, because your inner world is not a public place. It's a home, and homes don't stay safe by letting anyone walk in. Now here's another pattern interrupt. The people who benefited from your old self will often resent your healed self, because your old self was easier to handle. Your old self explained everything. Your old self forgave quickly. Your old self accepted half effort. Your old self tried to understand their pain before naming your own. So when you change, they may call you selfish. They may call you cold. They may tell others you switched up. But often, what they're reacting to is not your coldness. It's your boundaries. Your boundaries remove their comfort. And comfort is what they were calling love. So yes, after you're emotionally destroyed, you will look different to people who were used to having unlimited access. But that doesn't mean you became worse. It means you stopped leaking. Now let's name the final part of this shift. You stop chasing repair with people who don't repair. You stop begging for empathy from people who benefit from being unempathetic. You stop trying to be understood by people who make misunderstanding you convenient. And something else emerges. A quiet power. Not loud, not performative. A groundedness. You become someone who can sit in silence without panic. You become someone who can say no without guilt. You become someone who can walk away without a speech. You become someone who doesn't need to prove how much you cared. You start caring in a new way. You care about yourself too. And this is why the person you knew is gone, because the person you knew was built around hope. Hope that if you love hard enough, it will become safe. Hope that if you explain clearly enough, it will be understood. Hope that if you sacrifice quietly enough, it will be appreciated. And after emotional destruction, hope changes shape. It becomes standards. It becomes boundaries. It becomes self-trust. Now let's land this with a fast recap that your nervous system can remember. The quiet personality shift happens after emotional destruction because your body rewrites the rules of closeness. Your empathy becomes selective. Your access becomes earned. The overlooked sign is that you stop sharing your inner world before you stop showing up. Your action step is the two-door rule. Protect your inner world until someone proves they can hold it with consistency and repair. And the ending truth is this. You didn't become cold. You became careful. You didn't lose your heart. You stopped handing it to people who treat it like something replaceable. If this felt like it put words to something you've been living in silence, subscribe. In the next video, we're going to talk about what happens when you finally become careful and the people who hurt you suddenly come back nicer than ever. Why that moment is the most dangerous moment for an empath, and how to respond with clarity so you don't rebuild the same pain with a new apology.